If you guys would turn to 1 Timothy, I'm going to go back there and make sure that's what it is. And not 2 Timothy. Hang on a minute. Yes, it's 1 Timothy chapter 4. 1 Timothy chapter 4, we're going to look at verse 12. I have a mix here, but mostly an older crowd. I have a question for you. I know sometimes I come up with some silly thoughts of the week, but do you know what an influencer is? Do you guys all know what an influencer is? I'm going to mention a word. Do you know who Dylan Mulvaney is? You don't know? Wow. Wrong crowd. Okay, I should have changed my thought. Dylan Mulvaney is an influencer. She's the transgender influencer that they sent a beer to her, right? Matthew's smiling back there. Do you know who he or she is, right? Okay. Huh? Yeah, heard of it. All right. I'm way off topic here anyway. I thought this would be cool, because we're talking about influencing. How do you influence somebody? And of course, on the internet, influencers try and persuade you to be something, right? They're persuading you that their way is a good way. And there's a lot of influence out there. And God has called us to be an influencer, is where I was going with this, right? I have to tell you that I was influenced as a child, my grandparents. And why am I thinking about? Because my grandkids are here, okay? Why are we doing this? We're trying to influence them. We're trying to, instill some godliness into them, some understanding of who Christ is. And that's also what we're doing at camp, right? Is we want to influence these kids to understand that the Word of God is what it is and what Christ has done for them. And God has called us to be an influencer. And I should back up a little bit. That influence that I had, that my grandparents had when I was a kid, instilled into me a God consciousness. Now, I didn't get saved till years later, but I always had that inside that I knew where to go if I wanted to find God, was the Scriptures. And that's what my grandparents instilled in me when I was young. So anyways, in 1 Timothy chapter 4, and starting in verse 12, there's just one very quick, short verse, says, "Let no man despise thy youth, but be thou an example of the believers in word, in conversation, in charity, in spirit, in faith, and in purity." That's a good verse. And what he's saying is, he doesn't say be an example to the believer, all right? He's not saying we are to be an example to the believer. We are to be an example of a believer. There's a difference. You take a believer out, and this is what he looks like, right? And we want to influence people on these things. One of the things, on this verse is in faith and in purity. We want to instill purity into our children. Anyways, that's all I have for this morning. We can go ahead and open in a word of prayer.